Delinquent cat. You love him, you hate him, you don't use him. But in this video, I am going to explain why Delinquent Cat is the most underrated super rare in the battle cats. Now, to see why, we first need to look at his general stats. He has around 13,005 damage at level 30, true formed or not true formed, as well as about 4,000 DPS. He has about 20,000 HP, as well as a 3.23 second cooldown between his attacks. He has a 34 second cooldown, which is probably one of the biggest critiques people have for him. But can we just be honest here for a second? That is not that bad. You see, I'm here to argue that even cats with 25 second cooldown usually get a lot of praise, and those are for non-Ubers. But why does Delinquent Cat get hate? In my experience, this isn't really much of a problem, and if you protect him properly, you can definitely get at least 2 or 3 Delinquent Cats on the field. Now, sure, you do need a decent amount to actually get him with 34 second cooldown, but this is still kind of removed. Honestly, another thing you could argue is his range is low, but 270 range when looking at other low ranged units isn't bad at all, especially when seeing that flying cat only has 170 range. I mean, sure, 270 range is definitely not that bad. I don't even think that's considered a mid-ranged cat, but considering he's literally supposed to be on the front line, that isn't even that bad. Another thing that you can argue is the most common excuse in the battle cats, outclassed by Sanzo. Now, sure, that is true, but the thing with Delinquent Cat's niche is he only has a 16% chance to attack. Now, that may be a bad thing, but 3.23% attack frequency literally nullifies this, as that is not even that slow. Especially when you have other anti-floating units that literally take 10 seconds to attack. Now, sure, that there are way better anti-floating options, but Delinquent Cat definitely can stand out. Now, some people might argue that floating are hard hitters, and Delinquent Cat doesn't have too much health. However, at level 50, he has 50,000 health, along with almost 20,000 damage. This means he can tank hits from Bun Bun, the face, and many others. Now, sure, this isn't that insane, although considering he most floating don't do too much damage and are usually, in my experience, just there to tank, this is insanely useful. Now, this also means that and not just that, his niche is that he can freeze floating for about 2 seconds. So that effectively means that even in the time it takes him to attack, that's 75% uptime, which is incredibly good. And 50,000 HP, since he isn't strong against or anything, he is still a really good generalist. So that means that he can be used for both floating and pretty much everything else. Now, you could also argue that there are so many other anti-floating out there, but let's be honest. By the time you get Delinquent Cat, you probably aren't going to have true form Monk Cat. Another thing you might argue is that it takes a lot of investment to get him, and honestly, those people's IQ are probably in the single digits. Really, lots of cats take lots of effort to true form. Is Sushi Cat bad because he requires an epic cat fruit? No, in fact, he is one of the best anti-red tanks out there. Now you might bring up his relic niche, which that's probably one of the most useless parts about him. His relic niche is kind of outclassed considering most relics are way too strong for Delinquent Cat to handle, but frankly, 50,000 HP, come on, that isn't too bad. And plus, some relics are frontliners, which effectively means that he could probably outrange them, since Delinquent Cat is kind of close to being a mid-ranger. Now, this isn't too long of an explanation, but one more thing I want to bring up is accessibility. Delinquent Cat is a super rare, and due to the fact that super rares aren't that rare, You could easily get him early game and absolutely shred through early game, such as the face, Muth, and even Moth in some cases, seeing as Delinquent Cat does enough damage to easily chip away at his health. And not just that, you'll be able to progress insanely fast with Delinquent, since, again, he has really good generalist stats. Now, there is one thing that kind of downfalls him, though. He kind of is in the same boat as Titan Cat, where he's very, very viable during early game, but then kind of falls off. However, freezing and eventually getting strengthened against a relic in late game can actually be very, very useful, seeing as relics usually have very short attack frequency, so that little freeze could probably give you a little bit of the upper hand. Although, with his low cooldown, and not just that, some people will still argue about his cooldown, but again, you can just put a bunch of protection, and since he'll easily be able to stand behind literally any meat shield, and then you'll be able to win the stage. Now, listen. Some people may say I can't dignify arguing about this, considering I'm barely halfway through Into the Future Chapter 1. However, I have experienced him enough to the point where I never really have understood why people collectively just crap on his niche. Now, sure, he is not the best super rare. He's probably not the best anti-floating. But out of all the options out there, Delinquent Cat definitely stands out, and I definitely recommend him if you want to shred through anti-floatings, especially in early game. Honestly, if I were to ever make a super rare tier list, I mean, come on. I've seen people argue he was worse than Manic Dark. Doesn't that seem a little bit unjustified? Yeah, I do too. If I were to make a tier list, I would probably put him in B tier. Not anything too extreme, but Delinquent Cat is the most underrated super rare. Thanks for watching.